Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Well, I guess you're back. Good morning. This is Stan coming to you from Gainesville, Florida. And today we're going to discuss pressure from above, working abroad, YouTube, and how much to charge your friends, all on Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers, the original Lumen Brothers. That's right, Steve, Stan, and David. Back
Just
at
like
ya.
English muffins, the original English muffins. No raisins, no fancy cinnamon, just plain English muffins originals.
Is that really what an English muffin was? Just plain?
Yeah,
Just
three
muffin.
guys with nooks and crannies. We are the nooks and crannies
Oh my
of
God.
Light Talk.
We have lots of nooks and crannies, but there's no doubt
I
about
have more
that.
nooks and crannies than I used to have, let me just say.
Well, welcome everyone to episode 321. And for the people who missed it, you should tune in to episode 320, because last week we had Michael Kangas, who is the lighting and projection designs coordinator at the Canadian Opera Company. And we had a wonderful interview with him last week. Didn't you guys think that was very interesting?
Yeah, it was always good to have someone's perspective who is kind of midway in their career, certainly younger than us and doing great, and also, an international perspective.
Yeah. It's really cool that, he works with all these international artists. And also that he is a Canadian, a young Canadian designer. And we talk a lot about the opportunities for young designers in Canada, which to me was a little surprising, to tell you the truth. I thought there was a lot more available, but apparently, it's kind of like what is happening here.
But if you want a good English muffin, that's the place to go.
They got a lot of territory, but not a lot going on.
Well, he could always go up to the Dew Line, and, the little theater at the Dew Line where they're watching for Russian nuclear ballistic missiles coming in.
That's right.
Hey,
balloons.
we're doing Odd Couple tonight.
Chinese balloons and Russian missiles. There you go. And hey, listen, hey, guess what time it is? It is the end of the semesters. Isn't that cool? I mean, that's it.
It is.
Everybody's semester is over, right? The spring semester is over. We've survived another year in academia. Nobody's dead. We're still alive. We're worn. We're dimpled. We got nooks and crannies, but we're still alive. So, look, the spring semester over, which means that the two of you guys...
Get me the butter. Butter me up,
you're going to need butter because you're both going to be bums baking in the heat of Dallas and Gainesville for the next 3 months.
Margarine's okay. I'll just schmear. Just give me a schmear.
A schmear.
Schmear me out of here.
Besides your annual visit to the surface of Venus, which is what it's like being in Dallas or Gainesville in the summer, what are your exciting summer plans?
Well, I mean, right now, everybody in Dallas is anticipating a flawless season from the Dallas Cowboys. We know this is the year we're going to win 10 and lose none. And, it's like it'll slowly start slipping away from us as the season starts. But right now, we're optimistic. We're optimistic.
I'm going to do something with light that's big. I'm doing the biggest lighting design I've ever done.
Like a searchlight?
No. I'm going to harvest photons from the sun and convert them into electrical flow, which is then going to fill my bank account with more money because I'm going to have free electricity. I'm spending a lot of money, but it all comes back to light.
Nothing's free, Stan.
That sounds like Bitcoin to
I never
me.
said it was free. I said
man.
I'm doing a really large lighting
You said
project.
free electricity. Nothing's free.
So you're going solar?
He's going
I
solar.
am.
That's about time. Well, you don't have a solar car, man. You got to have a solar car. That's what's really what we need. Panels on the cars.
Just let Stan be Stan. Okay?
Okay.
I'm putting solar on the house.
Good.
Big time.
Here in Texas, I don't worry about things like that. I just bought a generator. So we're hooking a generator up with this wacky grid that we have here.
You do have a wacky grid.
That's a bad grid, man. That's a real bad grid. All right, so you guys are basically both doing nothing.
Well, I don't know.
We're
I'm not
supporting
going to
the
visit
economy.
Steve. I'm going to Texas in June. I'm going to visit my in-laws. I'm going to Houston, and then I'm going to Dallas, and then I'm going to maybe find some time and shake Steve out and go out with those guys and see some grandchildren and do a little of that. Then come back and watch the guys put the solar array on my roof and hopefully don't break anything.
And then get the weather report that a hailstorm is coming.
Yeah,
oh my
right.
God,
That
that's
would be a
right.
problem.
How do these panels deal with hail? Because you guys get a lot of hailstorms, don't you?
We don't. We rarely get a hailstorm.
Oh, okay.
And if we did, it's pretty well made to handle most. I mean, it'd have to be like baseball size hail, I think, to break it.
I'm dealing with natural gas.
Yeah, he's going with natural gas. Right.
Everybody wants to chop down my trees. When they look at my house to put a solar array on, they go, we got to take out all your oak trees.
You like your trees. Keep
I don't want you to take all my trees down.
No, trees are good. Anyway, anyone's interested, next week I head on a relaxing cruise of the Western Caribbean with Snoot. We are off to Prague then for the quadrennial, and after that, just gigging with my bands and a quick trip to Brookings, which is in Oregon. It's a beautiful city just at the Oregon-California border. And finally, I am planning for my very last semester teaching.
Yahoo!
You got to watch out about Oregon. Oregon's got a lot of Sasquatch problems. So I don't know. I don't know if I'd go
I'm
up there.
Sasquatch.
So are we going to start this, or are we going to keep talking about
let's start it.
Solar power.
Let's get started with some news. So, big news today. Today, Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro is now available for the iPad and in the App Store. So we talked about this last week, but this week, you can actually go on the App Store and download it, and which I did. And I only did it an hour ago, and I had a chance to play with Final Cut Pro, and let me tell you something, it is marvelous. It is really awesome. First of all, it's really made for a touchscreen. It really is. I mean, there's a huge difference in working with Final Cut, on a keyboard or a touchpad or a mouse or like that versus a touchscreen, because I was able to make changes and edits and apply filters and just create this amazing quick. They have this tutorial that they give you that is just amazing. It's hands on. It's all hands on. It's easy. It's really quite brilliant how they've done it. So I highly suggest everybody check it out. You can get it free for a month. They're doing a subscription price of $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year. So you buy a year and you get 2 months free. But you can, either way, you get the first month free. You can cancel it before the first month and you just get to play with it. So I think this is going to be a major game changer. Now, the other program is Logic Pro, which is fantastic, in my music work. And that is kind of cool. I haven't had a chance to play with it very much, but it too looks really, really interesting. But again, because we talk a lot about lighting design and video content design, Final Cut Pro, check it out. So Stan has our first question of the day.
From Gary in Indiana, and he says, I've been asked to do some lighting in an amphitheater outdoors, and I'll have to rig some trusses on chain motors. How do I deal with this considering the weather circumstances like wind, water, etc.? This is a very serious question and deserves a really serious answer. But I'll try anyway.
You've called the wrong show if that's what you want.
I'm certainly not an expert. So let's just do first of all, put a big fat "don't sue me" disclaimer on your light plot. Can try that. Second, hire a pro. We've said that before. Get professional riggers who know what they're doing. But I think you might want to just also have everybody thinking about, the kinds of motors. I did double check that Columbus McKinnon CM Lodestar, they do have these IP67 rated motors. So you want to do that. I'm just thinking about Florida because here, in fact, this came up in my life today. We were helping somebody out with the project. It wasn't lighting, but it was sound. They have these huge speaker arrays, and they're hanging from the structure of this amphitheater in, I think, Clearwater, which is right on the Gulf. And that's where the hurricanes come flying in. So it's these arrays, there's a fly bar at the top of the array, the speaker array, just like you'd have on a truss, right? And they're attached to structure. And they're engineered for 70-mile-an-hour winds. So the venue is saying, okay, when we get a warning that we got something coming in where the winds are greater than 70, we got to bring this stuff down. So the same would hold true for the lighting. So, we've helped them with, putting power in the right locations. We've specified some motor controllers. They have to go up in the lift. They have to, now, a 12-foot tall, 1.5 tons, 2 tons of speaker array. It's going to be a job getting them down. But I think you do have to be prepared in a situation where you're outdoors for weather and what has to come down, how fast you get it down, how are you going to get it down, and have a plan. So I think it's not something you just want to say, we'll cross that wet bridge when we get to it, or that windy bridge. I think you really want to plan that out and make sure you have the gear. I would rehearse it maybe, when the venue, I don't know if you have time to rehearse it, but, we have seen accidents and we have seen lack of planning for stuff like that. So I think it's, like I said, it's a serious question. It deserves a serious answer. And that's the best I can do at the moment.
Gary, you're an idiot. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? How do I deal with this? If you have to ask that question, you are nowhere remotely qualified to do this. Yes. This is like, did they send you another writer saying, we need some help with the sound mixing? And then another one like, we got some projections going on. Do you know anything about that? And, by the way, wardrobe is having trouble. I would tackle sound, video projections, and wardrobe. At least I'm not going to kill anybody. So I think if you've never done this and your question is vague enough that, maybe you've been on some rock and roll shows and you sent some stuff off for Met lifts, or maybe you've been there and done some genie towers, or maybe you've clamped, you've thrown a span set on something. This does not qualify you to do this. And it's an outdoor gig. I just did a quick look, and if you just Google rigging companies, there's at least 70. I have no idea how good they are, but there's got to be someone near you. I think you're really risking a lot. I think, if something goes south, you're going to get sued. You're going to lose your livelihood. You're going to lose your home. They're going to take your dog away from you. And when you're standing in the court and you go, well, Your Honor, I thought gaffer's tape would hold it. This is not, no matter how well.
He's got the job, and so he needs to do it right.
Yeah, he's got the job, but really, man, if you don't know what you're doing.
And no producer in their right mind should be, they're hiring you because you're a lighting designer, and celebrate that you do that really well and you're the go-to guy for their lighting for this gig you're doing. That's no easy accomplishment in itself. And doing outdoor gigs as a lighting designer is very difficult. But don't just walk away from this rigging job before you get into real trouble. I know a little bit about rigging, and I would never rig my own shows. I would never do that. I would always go with a professional. So be careful. Be careful.
Not hiring a rigger, it's sort of like the old days when people thought that lighting designers should be doing pyro too. And we saw what happens with that. There's one video I always show my students every year, and that is if you go on YouTube and you do a search for Great White, the Station Fire. And this is about a band back, I believe it was in the 80s or 90s, in this who did this gig, and these roadies who thought they knew anything about pyro, which they don't and didn't, and they were told not to use it, actually used it, and they ended up killing over 250 people. And that's the problem when you don't have experts doing a show, and you don't have experts doing pyro, you don't have licensed experts doing rigging. Just because you got the gig doesn't mean that you should be able to do this type of work. And even though it may be, mounting lighting equipment, there's no way in the world I would turn to a master electrician. And even though I specified it, if that master electrician turns to me and says, I don't think it's safe, then we're going to do it differently. It's that simple. So, but at least I have an ME and a structural engineer to look at the work. So I would keep it like that, man. Okay, Jana from New York asks, what do you do when the artistic director requests that you change your lighting design after the show has opened and you and the rest of the creative team has left town? Well, this happens rarely, but it does happen. I have seen it happen. I've been involved in productions when it's happened. I'm sure Stan and Steve have been dealing with stuff in their past about things like this. In most cases, what you normally get is a few weeks after the show opens, the stage manager may call you and ask, hey, listen, the blocking has changed a bit. We're not using that special down left. Is it okay if we get rid of that special and we just add a little bit of front light, down center for this moment instead of that? And most stage managers can handle something like that. They do have an eye to do this. If the good stage manager, professional stage manager can do that. And of course, they've asked permission, which is really what needs to happen because in your contract, it says they have to ask permission. Very, very important. That doesn't mean they always do, but a good stage manager, if they're an AGMA stage manager or an equity stage manager, they know the rules and they will make sure, like if someone says, we got to make a change in the lighting because we've changed the blocking, that stage manager say, cool, let me check with the lighting designer, and they'll call you up. And you say, yeah, absolutely, no problem. In a situation where an artistic director is calling you, that means there's something really serious going on with the show. An artistic director will normally go to the director and basically say, I think we need to change the lighting here. This has never happened to me, but I know it's happened to some people. And the director will either say, no, the lighting is what it is, and it's going to stay that way. And that usually is where the conversation ends. But there have been cases when the artistic director has called you up and basically will say, we really need a change here. Now, what I would do if that happens, I'd ask you, have you spoken to the director? And yes, I've spoken to the director and he doesn't agree with it, or maybe he'll say no, hasn't. And I said, well, I gotta get permission from the director first. And I will call the director, and the director say, yeah, he called me up. I don't want to do it, right? I don't think we should do it. So then that's the way it stays. And I don't come in, I don't give him permission to change the lighting. Now, if it's a situation where they add some production numbers or whatever, and you've already left town, then in your contract, it will say, at least it should say, that you can come in to relight certain scenes at a certain amount of money, which is usually a daily rate. And a daily rate changes. There's a minimum daily rate that every designer has, at least if it's in a union contract, it will stay, that rate would be stated. But that's a minimum. So you can pretty much charge what you want. Most people just charge whatever the going rate is, and they don't try to fleece people. But that's how that works. Have you guys ever had a situation like that?
I've had a couple, the same thing you have. You covered it really well. I've had a stage manager call me a couple times and say, look, they've sped up that cross from stage left to stage right. That 10 count really needs to be 7 counts now. Or, as you said, they've changed the blocking. But I've never had artistic director or director or producer call me. But I have had a stage manager call, and they're just doing house cleaning to clean stuff up to make the show look better.
Right. Yeah, that happens a lot. That does happen. Or can we shorten this cue from 10 seconds to 8 seconds because things are, absolutely.
Daisy in New York asks, do you sign a union contract when working abroad? The short answer for me is no, because I'm doing a lot of dance. And it's not like I'm it's not like I'm on the West End. That would be different. I'm at a lot of national or second national theaters. And I'm not signing a union contract. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't use the union contract as my guideline, and I do that all the time. If the show originates in the United States and the show moves, then yes, I've signed a union contract, and that contract moves with it. But I use the union contract form as a salary guideline when I'm talking to people. David, you do a lot of opera. I suspect it's different in your world.
It depends. Like you said, if it's like at a big theater in London, yeah, absolutely. I'm covered. If it's a theater in Italy, I don't know what good that's going to do you, because eventually you get paid there. The question is, they're not following any union standards whatsoever. So if your show's originating in a small theater, or even in a large theater, but that just works on their own crazy bureaucratic world, then no. But if it's in a major house, like you said, the West End, or if it's at the Royal Opera House or Paris Opera, something like that, absolutely. Absolutely.
A lot of my work is in France or in the Netherlands, and they are very generous in their salaries, the conditions are great to work in. And I've never had a problem. They've usually, they've almost got the money waiting for me when I get off the airplane. So it's always been a pleasure to work in those two countries. Yeah.
And I've worked in Finland. I've worked in Norway. The Scandinavian companies have it together. And but when you work in Russia, which I have, and you worked in Italy and Spain, it's a little different. It really is. It's really kind of wacky. So
those countries that you mentioned at the top are not debtor nations. I mean, the Netherlands and Finland, they all have a budgetary surplus. They have generational wealth. They don't. They actually are nations that other countries go to borrow from. Versus the opposite.
Oh, I have a question for you, David. Would you accept Bitcoin? Right? No, I'm serious. Rather than euros.
No, I don't understand Bitcoin. I know people lose a lot of money in Bitcoin. I think I'd rather have Cougarans than Bitcoin. So no, okay. I don't deal Bitcoin.
So no crypto for David.
No crypto for DJ.
There's your episode. Tom.
There you go. No crypto.
You are listening to Light Talk with the original Lumen Brothers. And Light Talk is sponsored by
Impossible Theatrical Solutions. We have all heard the latest hubbub about how artificial intelligence is changing our world. People are freaking out that machines are coming up with better essays, songs, poems, medical treatments, legal documents, and God forbid, better lighting and video designs. We can't help but think that our time of fooling everyone by pretending we know what we're doing, hiding behind the guise of the delicate genius, is coming to an end. Producers are asking, why should I pay some chump with an MFA $15,000 to design a show when you can just ask for your iPhone or iPad to create a cool video design for free? Shh, we should all keep that quiet. Isn't it time that we use the power of artificial intelligence for something really useful? Something that benefits us? Instead of those fat cats sitting in their penthouse offices cutting jobs in the name of advancing technology. Well, the good folks at Impossible Theatrical Solutions have the answer to your career longevity with Chat ALD. That's right. Instead of giving half of your salary to those useless young assistants, or as we call them, little Eevees, who are, let's face it, only after your job, why not pay a fraction of that fee for Chat ALD? Because Chat ALD is there only for you. Chat ALD will do everything and anything for you. Having trouble thinking of a new design approach for a chorus line? Chat ALD will instantly come up with dozens. Looking for a specific color sequence that will inspire emotion from the audience? Chat ALD will create palettes and transitions that will bring the audience to tears, hysterical laughter, or absolute revulsion. Want Chat ALD to take a note? Sure, but be careful not to insult her intelligence. Looking for engaging video content? Chat ALD will instantly search its trillion-item video libraries for just the right content. And don't worry, Chat ALD will automatically create brilliantly subtle changes from the original content that will protect you from those blood-sucking copyright lawyers. Remember, like the moronic college sophomore turning in an essay created by ChatGPT, you are protected, as there is no way to find out who the original creator is. And even if that creator claims it's their design, as of this date, nothing that artificial intelligence produces is copyrightable. Who is to say that the self-acclaimed original designer did not use artificial intelligence in their design process? And if your conscience racks your brain and keeps you awake at night, just remember what George Costanza said. It's not a lie if you believe it. So stop worrying about your creative ideas dying up like an old fart living on the beach. Let Impossible Theatrical Solutions help you stay at the top of your game by reusing other artists' designs with Chat ALD. Anyone there? Anyone there?
I mean, this is like a nightmare for the Screenwriters Guild right now. This is what they're arguing against.
That's a big part of their contract, though. Not being not allowing the producers to use ChatGPT.
And they don't want their work teaching chat to start creating work that's better than their work, based on their work.
Well, I'm not going to say anything about the quality of work that comes out of it, because we all know it's pretty good.
And now, back to the muffins. I'm sorry, the light talk.
Well, the sound of those crazed, lovable monkeys destroying Stan's office at Light Talk Central means that it's time for Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About is all about, is YouTube getting in the way of becoming a better lighting designer?
No, Chat ALD is.
That's true, too. But Steve, why don't you explain this? Because this came in from a question from one of our listeners, I believe.
Yeah, yes, it came from Lost in the Classroom. So, we can take a look at YouTube from a lot of different points of view. So simply, is YouTube making you a better LD or worse LD? I'm going to just consider for a second that YouTube is making you a terrible LD. If you all remember about, 10, 12 years ago, high school students started discovering previs, and they started building pretty impressive lighting demos and posting them on YouTube. And that has just taken off, and it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And now you're seeing a lot of students who are posting their work on YouTube. So what's this got to do with being a better or worse LD? I think what's happening, from my point of view, what I've seen happening is I'm seeing these mid-level size rock and roll shows mostly being done. And sometimes they have music with them, sometimes they don't, but most of the time they do. And I'm seeing comments, and it says things like, oh, the Rolling Stones would love to have this design, and if they didn't take it, I'm sure Bob Dylan would want it. So I think what I'm starting to see is just kind of generic work that is not great design. Now, in all fairness, I think it's pretty impressive programming, and I think pretty impressive work in visualization. And they're certainly learning about what the equipment will do. But I think, when someone says, oh, that would work for You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, or the Ice Capades, there's something missing. And I think YouTube is just saying, here, just do something that is flashy. It looks good. I'm not going to say it doesn't. But there's no kind of philosophy behind it, or it's just, here, let's see the 17 things the light will do, and let's incorporate 3 of those. I'm not seeing a design. I'm seeing a very impressive demonstration of equipment and a very impressive demonstration of programming skills. But I think lighting design is more than that. Am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. I just think there's another side to it that we don't know because, for instance, let me tell you a little story. There's a young designer here in the southern LA area, and I've seen a lot of his work as a programmer, very good programmer, and you need to know those tools, as we talked about last week with Michael, about the tools you really need to know to be successful and to be able to work with young directors. Let's be honest. You need to know the equipment, you need to know the program, you need to know all that stuff, right? And, I agree, when you have people doing like visualizations and all that, we don't know really what the intent is. And yeah, it's very flashy, and Flash is kind of cool, but it's Flash. We don't know about what the intention is, what the support of the meaning of the moment is. And I saw this designer's show that he did. It was a musical. It was actually, I won't name the name of the musical, but it's here locally and out in the LA area. And it was brilliant lighting design, really brilliant design. So I think there are a lot of people who we are just not exposed to their theatrical work, that we're only exposed to their concert work or their visualization work, things like that, where we can say, yeah, this is flash and trash and all that. Yeah, and it supports the music, absolutely. It's very bold and all that. But we don't know what their subtle work. And when we see their subtle work, it could be terrific, and they could be terrific lighting designers. So I think there are exceptions to what you're saying, Steve. I agree with you. 90% I totally agree with. But I believe that until we get to see their work in a live situation, that's not rock and roll situation or, any type of dance music situation, I think it's hard to make that judgment. It may make it better. I think I would hate to say technology is not making students better. I think in some cases, ChatGPT is a horrible, horrible thing for students because we're not creating critical thinkers anymore because, a student can cheat on an essay. They can have ChatGPT do the essay, and they're not understanding why the essay is important to develop critical thinking skills. So then they're not going to become critical thinkers. Not all students will fall into that trap, but many, many will. So in that way, I think technology could be very, very bad. But, there are exceptions everywhere. I don't know, Stan, what do you think?
I'm going to use architecture as an analysis tool here. So there are sort of two camps in architecture. There are firms that are called service firms, and then there are firms that are called design firms. And there's a difference. And so service firms design, but they design things purely around functionality. So if you need a big box store, another Target, another Walmart, another Kohl's, whatever it might be, another strip mall, you could hire a service firm. And that's a different level of talent. It's about efficiency. It's basically building boxes and making functional spaces. On the other side, a design firm, if you're looking at a Calatrava or Frank Gehry, a design firm is doing a different thing. They're looking at the space, they're looking at the feeling, they're looking at the philosophy, they're looking at the expressiveness, they're looking at the underlying story. You're going to get something much more expressive, much more, shall I say, if you will, artistic. So you really wouldn't hire Frank Gehry now, although he did do strip malls once upon a time, to design your strip mall or your Walmart. And you wouldn't hire the firm that's really good at putting up Walmarts to design the next Disney hall or a music hall. And so I think there's a difference in terms of intent. Now, does all lighting need to be artistic? Can some lighting just be functional? It looks good. Does it fit? Does it not fit? I think that's a debatable question, but I'm drawing this broader distinction between servicing something, which has its role, and designing something, which is a very sort of different creature, if you will, accept the analogy.
Okay.
It looks like I ended it.
It looks that way.
No, I think that was really well said.
Okay, well, Steve has the last question of the day. Bobby
in Cleveland asks, how much should I charge a friend to design his show?
Nada.
Well, okay.
As much as you can get out of him.
Okay, there's the full spectrum.
All right, so there's the phrase, a friend. Bobby, if anyone needed a contract, you need a contract. And that's going to keep your friend a friend. So how much can you charge them? I don't give friends discounts. I design shows. So if that person has a budget, let's say of $500, I make a decision on whether I want to do the show for $500 or not. I think you if my friend there is the artistic director of Sadler's Wells, then, that's a different level of budget. But I want to be treated fairly, and I want to treat everyone fairly in turn. So I start with a contract, and it says what I'm going to do and what my friend is going to do and the agreed upon salary that I'm going to get paid. The problem here is you think, oh, it's my friend. We're not doing this for money. We're doing this for the art of it and the fun of it. Well, everyone says that until your friend's show decides to go to Broadway and they cut you out of it. So I think I would just be fair. I would be fair. And your friend will say, I can't afford X, but I can pay this. And then you say, I accept or I don't accept. And if you can't accept, then your friend understands that you have good reasons for not accepting. But once they say, I'll pay you $500, then don't go back and whine about it and say, oh, I really needed $750, or I'm losing money on this show. Everyone else pays me $3,000. Just, it's a business. Treat it like a business. Stan, do you have any friends? Do you give them discounts in the architectural world?
According to Facebook, I have about 450, or I don't know how many friends I have. This is also a serious question and deserves a serious answer, but I'll try anyway, again. So once upon a time, I needed a lawyer, and I had a friend. His name is Rob. He was a dear friend, and he was a pretty decent lawyer. And I said, I need some help with X, Y, and Z. And I said, will you help me? And he said, sure. And do I need to pay you? He said, no. I'll help you because you're my friend. Here's what happened. A month goes by.
He sued you.
Nothing. Not quite. Another month goes by. Nothing. Another month goes by. Hey, Rob, could you get any of this done? Nothing. And I'm like, gee whiz, he's supposed to be my friend. And here's what I learned. And then I went to another lawyer who wasn't my friend, and we had an agreement, and it got done in 3 weeks. So bottom line, when you're seeking professional services, everyone will place the person who's cutting them a check higher on the priority list than the person they're doing a favor for. It's just nature, right? Your paying customers are going to come first. It's not an insult to your friend, like you don't care about them and you'd like to do it, but you have to feed the children. You have to make the money. So I think that Steve is right. It's one thing to give some friendly advice to a friend for free. Hey, get 6 lights, put them up over here, gets a dimmer pack. That's something else. Okay, but to light a show for a friend, I mean, I think when you're really going to work at that level of contribution, you want to formalize it. You want to professionalize it. Had I had an agreement with my friend Rod that I was going to pay you his hourly rate for the work he was going to do, or even if he was going to say, okay, I'll give you a discount, 25% off my usual rate, I bet he would have got the work done. But because it was a favor, it was such a low priority, not because I was a low priority, because he needs to make a living, right? So I think it's free advice is one thing. Like if I have a buddy who plays in a band in Gainesville, and he got some lights, and he goes, Stan, do you ever want to come out sometime and flash the lights for us? And I'm like, yeah, when I get old, I got nothing to do, we'll get a little lighting rig and I'll go out there and play the lights along with you. That would be for fun. But if it's not something you're doing for fun, it's a real deal, I think you professionalize it. I agree with Steve.
Cool. So in other words, you'll come out here and do lights for my bands for free. That's great.
Yeah, when I'm old and bored, you got it.
All right. Okay, well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to the 3 original Lumen Brothers. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you decide to eat this muffin, if you decide to litigate This new group with the legal team of Sparks, Burnout, Chase, Nook and Cranny will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and the Republic of Texas.
And don't forget, be sure to join us next week when we talk about more lighting shenanigans and serve you more of our casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
And next week we bring you a very special Best of Light Talk episode, episode 6 from 2017, our interview with Josh White. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Toodles.
Light